Have you seen a country which, as of 2026, the beginning of 2026, their utmost priority or the utmost priorities of their politicians is the election that will happen in 2027, which is next year? Have you seen a nation where the topic of the day or the talk of the day is who will become the president comes 2027? Not how to govern properly, not how to make lives better for the citizens. Have you seen a country like that? In case you don't know the country I'm talking about the giant of Africa, the country called the giant of Africa. And in case you don't know, I'm talking about Nigeria. Nigeria. That's the country I'm talking about, Nigeria. Sadly, we are in 2026, and the talk of the day, like when you come in on the internet, what you hear is 2027 election, 2027 election. Politicians have already started campaigning. I'm still asking, what is really happening in most West Africa? What is really happening? Like, what is the problem? Yeah, I'm not saying we shouldn't be talking about 2027 election, but don't you think it's too early? As of January, February, we are talking about what will happen next year. In a year to come, don't you think it is too early? Don't you think the main focus we should be focusing on this country is how to govern? So don't you think that's what we should be focusing on? We should be focusing on how to make lives better for the people. I mean, the politicians, that's what they should be focusing on. Tinubu, I mean, the president elect, the president of Nigeria, don't you think it is too early? I'm just being confused because I don't know how we are in 2026 and all of a sudden there's already campaign everywhere about who will become the president and who will not be. Okay, talking about next year's general election, there is a debate of electoral transmission. There is a debate of electoral transmission. The opposition in Nigeria is almost like is campaigning for electoral transmission because over the years the masses has come out, they have voted, and it seems at the end of the day it seems nothing to show for it. Like, it seems the whole effort is nothing, is hearing nothing. Like, the masses is being deprived of their choices. And now, as Nigeria is preparing for the upcoming election, the opposition is saying we want electoral transmission of live results. We want electoral transmission of live results. But guess what? The government is saying no. We can't, like, the National Assembly are rejecting the motive with several reasons. In a country of over 250 million people, of which majority are living in poverty, the top priorities of these politicians is how to campaign and win election illegally. The top priorities of these politicians is how to rig election comes 2027. May God help us. May God help the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
As Nigeria slowly inches toward the highly anticipated 2027 general election, the political atmosphere across the country is becoming heavier by the day. In markets, universities, motor parks, and online spaces, one question keeps resurfacing with growing intensity. Why is the idea of full electronic transmission of election results still facing resistance at the highest levels of power? And more pointedly, why does this resistance appear closely linked to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu? For many Nigerians, the debate around e-transmission is no longer a technical conversation about servers, networks, or rural connectivity. It has become a symbolic battle, a struggle between transparency and tradition, between reform and political survival. Since taking office, Tinubu's administration has repeatedly spoken about reforms, digital transformation, and modern governance. Yet when it comes to real-time electronic transmission of election results from polling units, the tone changes. Statements become cautious. Conditions multiply. Emphasis shifts to logistics, security, and national readiness. To critics, these explanations feel less like genuine concerns and more like deliberate hesitation. Across Nigeria, especially among young voters who dominate social media discourse, suspicion is growing. Many argue that e-transmission represents the single greatest threat to the old electoral playbook, one that allegedly thrives on delays, manual collation, result alterations, and post-election court battles. The fear, according to political analysts, is not about technology failing. It is about technology working too well. Under a full e-transmission system, results are uploaded directly from polling units to a central portal in real time. Once uploaded, they become difficult, if not impossible, to manipulate during collation at ward, local government, or state levels. For decades, these stages have been described by observers as the dark rooms of Nigerian elections, where figures sometimes change mysteriously.
Tinubu, in case you don't know, I want to make you know am. It dey come out from my mouth. Your administration na the most failed one. President Tinubu, your government na the most useless government. When they frustrate the poor citizens.
Supporters of e-transmission argue that if the process is transparent from the very first upload, the culture of disputed results would drastically reduce. Election night would become decisive, not suspenseful. But for entrenched political interests, that certainty may be exactly the problem. Within ruling party circles, there is also an unspoken anxiety about losing control of political arithmetic. Nigeria's elections have long been influenced by regional power brokers, political structures, and negotiated outcomes. E-transmission threatens to weaken these informal systems by shifting power directly to voters and digital records. The presidency's critics believe Tinubu understands this better than anyone. As a seasoned political strategist who rose through a system built on alliances, structures, and ground-level control, Tinubu is seen by many as a product of the old order, an order that may not survive a fully transparent digital election. Tension escalated further when debates over the powers of the Independent National Electoral Commission resurfaced. While INEC has repeatedly insisted it has the technical capacity to transmit results electronically, political actors continue to push for conditional use, leaving loopholes wide enough to drive a truck through. Civil society groups warn that such conditions could be weaponized in 2027. A single excuse, network failure, security threats, or logistical challenges, could be used to revert to manual collation in key areas, reopening the door to controversy and distrust. On the streets, frustration is boiling. Many Nigerians feel betrayed by promises of reform that appear selective. They ask why banking, taxation, and national identity systems can go digital, but elections, the foundation of democracy, must remain partially analog. As opposition parties reorganize and younger voters grow more politically aware, the demand for e-transmission is becoming louder and more defiant. What was once a technical reform is fast turning into a political red line. And this is where the fear, real or perceived, becomes most dangerous. Because in Nigerian politics, fear often shapes strategy, and strategy shapes outcomes. As 2027 draws closer, the silence, hesitation, and half measures around e-transmission are being interpreted by many not as caution, but as calculation. Whether this perception is fair or not, it is already influencing public trust. The bigger question now is not just whether Nigeria will adopt full electronic transmission of results, but what it will cost the nation if it doesn't. For President Bola Tinubu, The coming months may define not just his legacy, but the credibility of Nigeria's next election. And for millions of Nigerians watching closely, the battle over e-transmission is far from over. The unease surrounding e-transmission is also being fueled by memories that Nigerians have not forgotten. Memories of past elections where results announced at polling units bore little resemblance to figures later declared at collation centers. In many communities, voters still remember celebrating victory at night, only to wake up to a different outcome by morning. These experiences have shaped a deep national skepticism, one that no amount of official reassurance has been able to erase. Within political circles, whispers suggest that the real battle is happening behind closed doors. Power brokers are said to be divided. Some believe resisting e-transmission will only inflame public anger and energize opposition forces ahead of 2027. Others argue that conceding full digital transparency would be equivalent to surrendering political leverage that has taken decades to build. This internal contradiction is now playing out in policy delays and carefully worded statements. Nothing is rejected outright. Nothing is fully approved either. Instead, the country is left suspended in uncertainty, an uncertainty that is beginning to feel intentional. Legal experts have also entered the debate, warning that ambiguity around election technology could trigger unprecedented court battles after 2027. If electronic transmission is used selectively, lawyers argue it could open the door to constitutional challenges, especially if different standards are applied across states or regions. In such a scenario, the legitimacy of the election itself could be questioned, plunging the country into prolonged political instability. Meanwhile, Nigeria's youth population, already disillusioned by economic hardship, unemployment, and inflation, is watching closely. For many young voters, e-transmission is no longer just about elections. It represents whether their voices truly count in a system they increasingly feel excluded from. Social media campaigns calling for no e-transmission, no trust are gaining traction, signaling a generational shift in political expectations. Security analysts are also raising red flags. They warn that a disputed 2027 election, especially one marred by allegations of result manipulation, could ignite nationwide unrest. In a country already battling insecurity on multiple fronts, the political cost of a credibility crisis could be severe. And yet, despite these warnings, the silence from the top remains calculated. Supporters of the administration insist that caution is wisdom, that Nigeria must avoid rushing into a system that could be compromised. Critics counter that the real danger lies in refusing to evolve. As party primaries approach and political alliances quietly realign, one thing is becoming clear: the question of e-transmission is shaping strategies long before ballots are cast. Candidates are factoring it into where they campaign, how they mobilize, and which regions they consider safe or contested. In this tense build-up to 2027, every delay sends a message, every statement is dissected, and every policy gap feeds speculation. Whether by design or consequence, the controversy over electronic transmission has become a defining fault line in Nigeria's democratic journey. And as the nation edges closer to another decisive election, the pressure is mounting, not just on institutions, but on the presidency itself. Because sooner or later, the country will demand clarity. And what comes after that clarity may determine the direction Nigeria takes next. What makes the situation even more delicate is the growing sense that time is being deliberately allowed to slip away. With each passing month, the window for testing, refining, and strengthening a nationwide e-transmission system becomes smaller. Electoral reforms, experts insist, are not innovations to be introduced on the eve of elections. They require pilots, stress tests, and public confidence building long before ballots are printed. Yet, critics argue that urgency appears to be missing, at least at the level where final political approval is required. Inside the National Assembly, debates around electoral amendments have become increasingly tense. Lawmakers trade accusations across party lines, with opposition figures accusing the ruling establishment of intentionally weakening reform clauses. Supporters of the presidency counter by accusing critics of weaponizing public fear to score political points. But beneath the political theater lies a deeper truth. The rules of the 2027 election are still being negotiated in the shadows. For election observers, this uncertainty is dangerous. A credible election is built not just on technology, but on trust. And trust, once broken, is difficult to rebuild. The memory of the last general election, where electronic uploads were promised but inconsistently applied, still hangs heavily over the nation. Many Nigerians believe that what failed once can fail again, especially if loopholes are left open by design. International partners and democratic watchdogs are also watching Nigeria closely. As Africa's most populous country, Nigeria's elections often set a tone for the region. A transparent process could reinforce democratic norms across West Africa. A disputed one could do the opposite. Quiet diplomatic signals are reportedly being sent, urging clarity and consistency, even as official statements remain cautious. Within the ruling camp itself, unease is reportedly growing. Some insiders fear that resisting full transparency could backfire spectacularly. In an age of smartphones, citizen journalists, and instant uploads, suppressing or altering results has become harder than ever. If official systems fail to provide clarity, unofficial ones may fill the gap, fueling rumors, parallel result announcements, and potential chaos. On the streets, ordinary Nigerians are drawing their own conclusions. To many, the resistance to e-transmission feels like a lack of faith in the people's will. They ask a simple question: if elections are truly free and fair, why fear instant transparency? Why delay what could settle outcomes quickly and peacefully? Supporters of President Bola Tinubu argue that these questions oversimplify governance. They insist that leadership requires prudence, not pressure. But in politics, perception often matters as much as intention. And the prevailing perception is that hesitation benefits incumbency more than democracy. As campaign billboards begin to quietly appear and political meetings intensify behind closed doors, one reality is unavoidable: the fight over e-transmission is no longer abstract. It is shaping narratives, alliances, and voter expectations in real time. Nigeria now stands at a crossroads. One path leads toward clarity, confidence, and a decisive 2027 election night. The other leads toward suspicion, disputes, and prolonged uncertainty. Which path will be chosen remains unclear. But as the silence continues and decisions are postponed, the tension only deepens, setting the stage for a confrontation that may define the next phase of Nigeria's democratic story. Behind the public debates and official press statements, a quieter but more consequential struggle is unfolding, one that revolves around control of narrative. In Nigerian elections, perception on election night often shapes acceptance or rejection of results. E-transmission threatens to remove the long gap between voting and declaration, a gap that has historically been used to manage reactions, negotiate alliances, and sometimes soften public outrage. For seasoned politicians, that gap has always been a strategic buffer. Sources close to political negotiations suggest that the fear is not necessarily about losing elections outright, but about losing the ability to manage loss. Under a system where results emerge instantly and publicly, there is little room for damage control. No time to recalibrate messaging. No space for emergency alliances. No opportunity to influence collation centers quietly. Victory or defeat becomes immediate and irreversible. This reality has deeply unsettled the political establishment. In contrast, opposition figures are framing e-transmission as a non-negotiable safeguard. They argue that without it, participation in the 2027 election risks becoming symbolic rather than meaningful. Some opposition leaders have even hinted, carefully but deliberately, that mass voter apathy could return if reforms stall. In a country where turnout is already fragile, this is a dangerous warning. The role of the Independent National Electoral Commission has therefore become central to the unfolding drama. While INEC maintains that it is institutionally independent, critics argue that independence without political backing is fragile. Budget approvals, legal frameworks, and enforcement powers still flow through political channels. This leaves the Commission walking a tightrope, trying to reassure citizens while navigating pressure from powerful actors. Within civil society, discussions have moved beyond advocacy into contingency planning. Election monitors are reportedly preparing parallel verification systems, while tech-savvy groups are exploring citizen-driven result uploads. The message is clear: if official systems hesitate, unofficial transparency may rise in their place. Security agencies, too, are preparing for multiple scenarios. A smooth election night with instant results could mean calm acceptance. A delayed, disputed outcome could spark protests, localized unrest, or even national shutdowns. The stakes are enormous, and everyone seems to know it, except those who continue to speak in half-commitments. For President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the pressure is intensifying from all sides. International credibility, domestic legitimacy, and historical legacy are converging around a single issue that refuses to go away. Supporters insist he is being cautious for the nation's good. Critics believe the caution masks fear of a system that no longer bends. As Nigeria approaches the final stretch before 2027 preparations must be locked in, the silence around full e-transmission is becoming louder than any speech. Every delay is being interpreted, every ambiguity dissected. And in a political environment already charged with mistrust, one unresolved question continues to dominate conversations across the country. If the people truly decide, why not let the results speak for themselves, instantly, openly, and without delay? The answer to that question may not come today. It may not even come this year. But when it does, it is likely to reshape not just the election, but the very meaning of democracy in Nigeria. As the conversation deepens, another uncomfortable layer is emerging: the psychology of incumbency. History shows that governments heading into re-election seasons often become risk-averse, especially when reforms could strip away long-held advantages. In Nigeria's case, e-transmission represents more than innovation. It represents a loss of insulation from electoral shock. Insiders familiar with power dynamics in Abuja suggest that the anxiety is also about scale. Nigeria is not a small democracy experimenting with digital voting in a handful of districts. It is a vast federation with razor-thin margins in key states, where a few thousand votes can decide national power. Instant transmission compresses uncertainty into minutes, not days, leaving no room to recalibrate strategy across swing regions. This is why the debate has shifted from whether e-transmission is possible to how much transparency is politically tolerable. Within party caucuses, strategists are said to be running parallel scenarios, one with full electronic uploads, another with partial or conditional implementation. The outcomes are starkly different. In the full transparency scenario, election night becomes decisive, media-driven, and largely irreversible. In the conditional scenario, outcomes remain fluid, open to interpretation, negotiation, and legal maneuvering. The latter, critics say, feels uncomfortably familiar. Meanwhile, public patience is thinning. Each time officials speak of phased implementation or context-based deployment, citizens hear contingency plans, not commitment. Civil society leaders warn that such language creates expectations that can be exploited on election day, especially in flashpoint states where connectivity challenges can be invoked to justify manual processes. The Independent National Electoral Commission has tried to steady the ship by emphasizing preparedness and lessons learned. Yet confidence remains fragile. Nigerians remember promises made before, and the disappointment that followed. Trust, once eroded, demands clarity, not caveats. What's adding fuel to the fire is the regional implication. Across West Africa, elections are being watched with heightened sensitivity amid coups, transitions, and democratic backsliding. Nigeria's choices carry symbolic weight. A transparent, decisive process would reinforce democratic norms.
You have the insurgency governors, you have National Assembly, you have the IG of police, you have the military, even the INEC now is a branch of APC. Yes, you are scared of elections. Are you people mad?
A disputed one could embolden cynicism far beyond its borders. For President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, allies argue the calculus is complex: safeguard stability, avoid technical embarrassment, and keep institutions aligned. Opponents counter that stability built on ambiguity is fragile, and that democracy thrives on certainty, not control. As preparatory timelines narrow, the stakes sharpen. Training schedules, procurement decisions, and legal amendments must soon be finalized. Each unresolved detail tightens the knot. In political briefings, the question is no longer academic, it's operational. What happens if the system delivers results that power cannot manage? Outside government buildings, the mood is shifting from debate to demand. Activists are drafting timelines. Lawyers are preparing briefs. Observers are coordinating early warning networks. The pressure is building, not explosively, but relentlessly. And as Nigeria drifts closer to a moment when choices can no longer be deferred, one reality is becoming unavoidable. Delay itself has become a decision, one with consequences that will echo long after the ballots are cast. What is becoming clearer by the week is that the controversy has moved beyond policy into trust warfare. Every side is now fighting to define what Nigerians should believe before 2027 even arrives. The presidency speaks the language of caution and preparedness. Reform advocates speak the language of urgency and prevention. Caught in between is a population that has learned, often painfully, that elections are decided as much by systems as by ballots. Within political strategy rooms, there is growing recognition that e-transmission has changed expectations permanently. Even if it is delayed or diluted, the idea itself has already reshaped voter consciousness. Nigerians now expect instant visibility. Any outcome that arrives through prolonged collation will automatically face suspicion, regardless of who wins. This is the dilemma facing President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his political camp. If full e-transmission is embraced, the election becomes a high-stakes, no-buffer contest. If it is resisted, the election risks being viewed as compromised before the first vote is cast. Either way, the margin for error is narrowing. Inside the ruling party, there are signs of quiet disagreement. Some governors and legislators reportedly favor full transparency, believing it could legitimize victory and neutralize post-election unrest. Others remain deeply skeptical, arguing that Nigeria's uneven infrastructure makes blanket implementation risky and politically dangerous. These divisions, though rarely public, are beginning to leak into the policy process. At the center of it all sits the independent National Electoral Commission, under intense scrutiny. Every procurement decision, every training program, every technical rehearsal is now read as a political signal. Even silence is interpreted as alignment. INEC's challenge is no longer just operational, it is existential. Its credibility in 2027 may depend on whether Nigerians believe it had both the capacity and the courage to act independently. Opposition figures are capitalizing on this uncertainty. Campaign messaging is increasingly framed around defending the vote rather than traditional party ideology. The implication is subtle but powerful. If institutions cannot be trusted, citizens must become watchdogs themselves. This narrative is resonating strongly among urban youths and first-time voters. At the grassroots level, conversations are changing. Voters are discussing how to record results at polling units, how to verify uploads, how to challenge discrepancies in real time. This heightened awareness could strengthen democracy or strain it, depending on how institutions respond. Security planners are watching these trends carefully. High civic engagement can deter fraud, but unmet expectations can also fuel flashpoint reactions. If voters believe results are being withheld or altered, even briefly, tensions could escalate quickly. The risk is not hypothetical. It is rooted in lived experience. As Nigeria edges closer to the point where election rules must be finalized, the unanswered questions are multiplying. Will clarity come early enough to build confidence? Or will ambiguity persist until it becomes explosive? For now, the nation waits, alert, skeptical, and increasingly vocal. The silence around decisive reform continues to speak volumes, and each passing week adds weight to a single, unresolved tension that refuses to fade. And somewhere between preparation and postponement, Nigeria's next political reckoning is quietly taking shape. As the countdown continues, another reality is setting in. The cost of indecision is quietly accumulating. Electoral systems are not just built with machines and software, they are built with confidence. Every unresolved argument over e-transmission chips away at that confidence, replacing it with speculation and fear. By the time 2027 arrives, the battle for legitimacy may already be half lost before a single vote is counted. Political historians point out that moments like this often define eras. Nations rarely stumble into crises suddenly. They drift into them through delayed choices and unresolved reforms. In Nigeria's case, the drift is becoming visible. The longer the rules remain unclear, the more actors prepare for worst-case scenarios instead of best-case outcomes. Within Abuja, analysts say the presidency is weighing not just electoral outcomes but post-election governability. A transparent but unfavorable result could be accepted peacefully, or it could spark elite backlash within powerful blocs. A disputed but managed outcome might retain control, but at the cost of mass legitimacy. This balancing act, observers say, explains the hesitation more than any technical excuse ever could. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is no stranger to political storms, but this one is different. It cannot be negotiated away or postponed indefinitely. Technology does not compromise. Once introduced, it exposes everything: numbers, patterns, margins, and surprises. For a political class accustomed to gradual disclosures, that exposure is unsettling. Meanwhile, the independent National Electoral Commission faces its own internal reckoning. Officials understand that whatever decision emerges, full e-transmission, partial rollout, or conditional application, will define how history judges the institution. To many Nigerians, 2027 will not be remembered by campaign slogans, but by whether results were visible, verifiable, and immediate. Civil society leaders warn that expectations are now locked in. Any deviation from promised transparency could trigger instant backlash. In a hyper-connected Nigeria, rumors travel faster than official explanations. A delayed upload in one state could spark protests nationwide within hours. The system, they argue, must be airtight, or not attempted at all. At the grassroots, conversations have shifted from hope to preparedness. Communities are discussing contingency plans, monitoring teams, and legal hotlines. Faith in institutions is being replaced with vigilance against them. While this may empower citizens, it also reflects a deeper wound. a belief that democracy must be defended from those meant to protect it. International observers are expected to increase engagement as 2027 approaches. Quiet diplomatic pressure is likely to intensify, not publicly, but through technical support offers and reform benchmarks. Nigeria's image as a democratic anchor in Africa is at stake, and allies are keenly aware of the ripple effects. Yet despite all this, the central question remains unanswered. Not because it is complex, but because its implications are profound. Will Nigeria choose certainty over control? Will power trust the process enough to let results speak instantly and without mediation? Until that choice is made, the nation remains suspended in a tense pause, one where silence, delay, and ambiguity are shaping the future as surely as any law or reform ever could. What is quietly emerging now is a battle of timing, and timing, in Nigerian politics, can be everything. Electoral experts warn that if decisive reforms are not locked in early, last-minute adjustments could introduce confusion that benefits only those already positioned within the system. The absence of a firm commitment to full e-transmission is therefore not neutral. It actively reshapes how political actors prepare. Party structures across the country are adapting to uncertainty. In regions considered politically volatile, campaign planners are reportedly focusing less on persuasion and more on turnout management and result protection. The logic is simple. If transparency is uncertain, control at the grassroots becomes more valuable. This shift has consequences. It hardens politics, intensifies rivalry, and raises the stakes at polling units themselves. For President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, advisors are said to be split between two schools of thought. One argues that embracing full e-transmission early could neutralize criticism, reset expectations, and project confidence. The other warns that doing so could expose the administration to unpredictable outcomes in a climate already strained by economic pressure and public frustration. The result is hesitation, measured, strategic, and increasingly conspicuous. The Independent National Electoral Commission, meanwhile, is racing against perception as much as logistics. Training schedules, equipment procurement, and system simulations are underway, but public communication remains cautious. Officials understand that over-promising could be fatal. Yet under-communicating leaves room for conspiracy theories to thrive. Opposition parties are exploiting this vacuum. Their rhetoric now centers on inevitability, that transparency is coming whether the establishment likes it or not. Some are betting that even partial e-transmission will reveal patterns that undermine traditional strongholds. Others are preparing legal strategies that hinge on inconsistencies, arguing that selective digital uploads could invalidate results entirely. Among voters, especially in urban centers, the mood is evolving from concern to resolve. Many are planning to remain at polling units longer, document results, and cross-check uploads in real time. This heightened vigilance reflects both democratic maturity and institutional distrust, a double-edged development that could either safeguard the vote or strain election day security. Security planners acknowledge the risk. An election where citizens feel compelled to self-verify every step can escalate tensions if expectations are not met instantly. A delayed upload, a server glitch, or conflicting figures, any of these could trigger flash reactions. The margin for error is shrinking. As preparatory calendars advance, the unspoken truth is this: the system Nigeria chooses now will decide not just who wins in 2027, but how the nation reacts to the outcome. Acceptance or rejection, calm or chaos, legitimacy or litigation, all are being shaped long before ballots meet boxes. And still, the central decision remains suspended. The longer it hangs, the more Nigeria's political future is being written by anticipation rather than policy, by fear of exposure rather than confidence in process. What happens next will not arrive suddenly. It will unfold as a consequence of choices delayed, signals sent, and clarity withheld. The ground is shifting. The players are adjusting. And the clock, indifferent to strategy, keeps moving forward. Another layer of the controversy is now surfacing: fear of precedent. If Nigeria successfully conducts an election with full, seamless e-transmission, it will permanently raise the standard. Future governments, future candidates, and future elections will be measured against that benchmark. There will be no going back to excuses, delays, or selective transparency. For many within the political establishment, this is a point of no return. Analysts say this is why the debate feels unusually tense. It is not just about 2027, it is about every election after it. Once instant result visibility becomes normal, any attempt to reverse it would trigger national outrage. The old rhythm of Nigerian elections, late-night collation drama, conflicting figures, and prolonged court battles would lose its grip. For those who have mastered that rhythm, change is not just uncomfortable, it is existential. This is where President Bola Ahmed Tinubu finds himself under an unforgiving spotlight. Supporters argue that he is protecting institutional stability, not personal advantage. Critics counter that stability built on controllable opacity cannot survive a digitally awakened electorate. The tension between these two narratives is defining the political climate long before campaigns officially begin. Behind the scenes, discussions are reportedly focusing on how much transparency is enough to satisfy the public without fully surrendering control. This is where phrases like hybrid systems and fallback mechanisms enter the conversation. But to reform advocates, such language sounds dangerously close to designing failure into the system from the start. The Independent National Electoral Commission is increasingly aware that its credibility may soon outweigh its operational challenges. Even a technically successful election could be deemed a failure if Nigerians believe transparency was intentionally limited. In this environment, perception is not secondary, it is decisive. Political communication experts note that silence from the top has become its own message. Every week without a clear directive fuels the belief that the status quo is being preserved by default. And in Nigerian politics, defaults often favor incumbency. At the same time, a new kind of political literacy is spreading among voters. Discussions about servers, upload timestamps, back-end access, and audit trails, once the domain of specialists, are now happening in everyday conversations. This awareness is reshaping expectations. Nigerians are no longer satisfied with assurances. They want verifiable proof. This rising sophistication poses a dilemma for power. A population that understands the mechanics of elections is harder to manage through ambiguity. Any inconsistency will be noticed, recorded, and amplified. The days when explanations could be delayed or buried may be over. As preparations quietly accelerate, the paradox deepens. The more the system prepares technically, the more glaring the political hesitation becomes. Equipment can be procured. Staff can be trained, but confidence cannot be installed at the last minute. Nigeria is now approaching a critical psychological threshold. If clarity does not arrive soon, uncertainty itself may harden into expectation. And an election held under a cloud of expectation is one where acceptance becomes elusive. For now, the country remains in a prolonged holding pattern, watching, waiting, interpreting every signal. The question of e-transmission has stopped being about machines or networks. It is about trust, control, and whether power is ready to face the people without filters. And as this tension continues to build, one truth is becoming harder to ignore. When transparency is delayed long enough, suspicion becomes policy, an undoing that may prove far more difficult than embracing reform ever would have been. As the weeks stretch on, a more unsettling pattern is beginning to emerge: normalization of uncertainty. What once sparked outrage is slowly being absorbed into routine political conversation. Delays are explained away. Ambiguities are reframed as process. And in that slow adjustment, critics warn, the danger lies not in outright rejection of reform, but in quietly lowering expectations. This normalization is exactly what reform advocates fear most. In private political briefings, strategists are now discussing how to survive uncertainty rather than resolve it. The thinking is tactical. Prepare narratives for delayed uploads, develop legal explanations in advance, and manage public reaction in phases. In such calculations, e-transmission is treated not as a democratic guarantee, but as a variable to be controlled. For President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, this moment represents a narrowing corridor. Every attempt to remain above the fray is increasingly interpreted as tacit consent to delay. Allies argue that leadership sometimes means resisting public pressure. Opponents respond that leadership, in a democracy, also means trusting institutions enough to let them operate without political cushioning. The Independent National Electoral Commission now finds itself caught between preparation and perception. Internally, officials know that technology alone cannot save credibility if political will appears absent. Externally, Nigerians are scrutinizing timelines, budgets, and statements for signs of backtracking. The Commission's independence is being tested not by a single directive, but by prolonged hesitation. What complicates matters further is the legal grey zone. Electoral lawyers warn that partial implementation of e-transmission could create fertile ground for post-election litigation. If results are transmitted in some areas and not others, courts may be flooded with challenges questioning equal treatment of votes. Such a scenario could delay governance for months, leaving the country politically frozen. Yet even this risk does not seem to be forcing urgency. In opposition circles, the strategy is evolving. Rather than waiting for reforms, some are planning campaigns built around anticipating dispute. Messaging is being designed to contest credibility immediately if transparency falters. This preemptive posture raises the stakes dramatically. An election where both sides expect conflict is one where calm acceptance becomes unlikely. Among ordinary citizens, the emotional temperature is shifting. Conversations are less hopeful, more guarded. Many Nigerians say they will vote, but with lowered expectations of fairness. That sentiment, analysts note, is corrosive. Democracy depends not just on participation, but on belief that participation matters. Security agencies are quietly modeling scenarios where delayed results coincide with heightened public anxiety. In such moments, even misinformation can ignite unrest. The absence of clear, instant results creates a vacuum, and vacuums rarely stay empty. As Nigeria edges closer to the irreversible phase of election preparation, one truth is becoming increasingly stark. Clarity delayed today multiplies risk tomorrow. The system may still function, ballots may still be cast, but legitimacy is far more fragile. And so the tension continues to thicken, not in dramatic bursts, but in steady accumulation. Each unanswered question adds weight. Each postponed decision tightens the knot. The country is no longer asking whether e-transmission is possible. It is asking whether power is ready for what e-transmission reveals. And until that question is confronted directly, Nigeria's path to 2027 will remain shadowed by doubt, anticipation, and a growing sense that the most decisive moments are still being quietly deferred. What is increasingly evident is that the struggle over e-transmission has evolved into a test of political courage. Not courage in the dramatic sense of speeches or rallies, but the quieter courage required to accept outcomes that cannot be adjusted, delayed, or reinterpreted. For many observers, this is the real fault line running through Nigeria's pre-2027 politics. Within elite circles, conversations are no longer about whether e-transmission is desirable, but about who bears the risk if it delivers unexpected results. Power in Nigeria has long been cushioned by layers: party structures, regional bargaining, judicial buffers. Instant electronic transmission threatens to compress all of that into a single moment of truth. And moments of truth, history shows, are uncomfortable for systems built on negotiation. This is why critics argue that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu appears trapped between legacy and survival. Embracing full transparency could cement his place as a reformer who strengthened Nigeria's democracy. Resisting it could protect short-term political advantage but risk defining his tenure by mistrust and controversy. The longer the decision is deferred, the harder it becomes to frame it as neutral. At the institutional level, the independent National Electoral Commission is under unprecedented microscopic scrutiny. Every pilot test, every internal memo, every public briefing is being interpreted through a political lens. Even technical language is now politically charged. When officials speak of redundancy systems or contingency plans, reform advocates hear preparation for rollback rather than resilience. Media organizations are also shaping the battlefield. Election analysts are dissecting scenarios nightly, reminding viewers that credibility is not built on explanations after the fact, but on predictability before the fact. The question being raised repeatedly is simple but unsettling. Why prepare the public for exceptions instead of certainty? Behind the scenes, powerful interests are said to be lobbying quietly, not always against e-transmission itself, but for ambiguity. Ambiguity preserves leverage. It keeps options open. It allows post-election maneuvering to remain part of the political toolkit. In contrast, clarity shuts doors permanently. At the grassroots, however, patience is thinning. Community leaders, student groups, and professional associations are beginning to articulate a shared position. Whatever system is chosen must be declared early, tested openly, and applied uniformly. Anything less, they warn, will be interpreted as manipulation, regardless of intent. This widening gap between elite calculation and public expectation is dangerous. When citizens begin to believe that rules are shaped to favor those in power, trust erodes rapidly. And once trust collapses, even technically sound elections struggle to produce acceptance. As Nigeria moves deeper into the pre-election phase, the atmosphere feels less like anticipation and more like suspended judgment. Everyone is watching for a signal, a definitive statement, a binding amendment, an unmistakable commitment. Until that signal comes, speculation fills the space. And so the country continues forward, not with certainty, but with sharpened awareness. Awareness that the real contest may not begin on election day, but long before it, within boardrooms, policy drafts, and decisions quietly postponed. The silence around e-transmission is no longer empty. It is heavy, loaded with expectation, and increasingly difficult to sustain. Another subtle shift is now taking place: the erosion of benefit of doubt. In previous election cycles, institutions could rely on goodwill, asking citizens to wait for official results and trust that processes would eventually align with reality. That goodwill is now dangerously thin. Years of disputed outcomes, delayed uploads, and contradictory explanations have hardened public skepticism into default suspicion. In this climate, even genuine technical challenges risk being interpreted as intentional sabotage. Political analysts note that this is the most fragile phase of the build-up to 2027. Not because decisions have been finalized, but because expectations have. Nigerians are no longer debating whether e-transmission should exist, they are debating why it is being delayed. That shift matters. Once motives are questioned, reassurance becomes far more difficult. For President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, this moment carries an unusual weight. Silence that might once have been strategic now feels exposed. Every week without a firm, unambiguous commitment is framed as avoidance rather than deliberation. Allies insist that leadership must not be rushed. Critics argue that democracy cannot be put on hold indefinitely. Within the Independent National Electoral Commission, officials are acutely aware that credibility is cumulative and perishable. They know that even a technically flawless election could be rejected if citizens believe the rules were shaped to allow discretion at critical moments. Uniformity, not flexibility, has become the public demand. What complicates the situation further is the growing role of informal verification. Civil society networks, media houses, and citizen groups are preparing to publish parallel tallies, timestamp photos, and crowdsourced uploads. While intended to promote transparency, these parallel systems could clash with official narratives if results are delayed, creating competing truths in real time. Security experts warn that such clashes are where tensions escalate. Conflicting figures, even if temporary, can harden positions quickly. Once narratives set, retractions rarely heal the damage. This is why instant, official clarity is seen as essential, not optional. Meanwhile, political negotiations continue quietly, not loud enough to reassure the public, but significant enough to influence outcomes. The language remains cautious, conditional, and procedural. Yet outside those rooms, the patience for procedure is waning. The paradox is striking. Nigeria has never had more tools to run a transparent election, and never less trust that those tools will be used without restraint. That contradiction sits at the heart of the e-transmission debate. As preparations move closer to the point of no return, the question hanging over the nation is no longer abstract or technical. It is deeply political, deeply emotional, and deeply consequential. Can a system built on discretion willingly submit itself to instant exposure? Until that question is answered decisively, Nigeria's journey to 2027 will remain tense, watchful, and unresolved, poised between reform and retreat, with the next chapter still waiting to be written. As the tension stretches on, another critical element is quietly shaping the landscape: fear of uncontrollable momentum. Once e-transmission is fully activated and trusted, political momentum no longer builds in back rooms or over prolonged collation periods. It erupts instantly in the public space. Victories are celebrated immediately. Losses are accepted or rejected, without time for elite mediation. For a political culture long accustomed to managing tempo, this loss of pacing is deeply unsettling. Observers argue that this is where the anxiety truly lies. Not in technology itself, but in the speed of consequence. Within power circles, speed is dangerous. It leaves no room for interpretation, negotiation, or strategic silence. A result uploaded in real time becomes a fact before talking points can be aligned. Media headlines form within minutes. International reactions follow shortly after. In such an environment, political survival depends less on influence and more on acceptance. This is why the hesitation surrounding e-transmission continues to feel deliberate. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is widely seen as understanding this dynamic better than most. His long political journey was built in an era where outcomes unfolded gradually, where influence extended beyond election day, and where consolidation often happened after the votes were cast. A system that compresses all that into a single transparent moment represents a fundamental shift in how power is acquired and sustained. Inside the Independent National Electoral Commission, technical teams continue preparations, but the absence of a definitive political signal looms over every plan. Officials know that systems can be ready, yet still undermined by conditional directives or last-minute reinterpretations. The fear is not failure, it is selective application. Meanwhile, Nigeria's political opposition senses opportunity in the uncertainty. Rather than waiting passively, some are framing the coming election as a referendum not just on leadership, but on trust itself. Their messaging increasingly suggests that any hesitation around transparency is proof of something to hide. Whether fair or not, this narrative is gaining traction among voters already skeptical of power. At the grassroots, this skepticism is transforming into resolve. Communities are organizing informal observation groups. Youth networks are sharing guides on documenting polling unit results. The public is preparing not just to vote, but to defend the process. This shift marks a profound change in civic behavior, one born from anticipation of dispute rather than confidence in institutions. Security planners view this development with mixed emotions. While active citizen engagement can deter manipulation, it can also raise tensions if expectations clash with reality. A delayed upload, a system pause, or conflicting figures, even if innocent, could spark reactions that spiral quickly. Yet, despite all these warning signs, the political center remains cautious, almost frozen. Decisions that should bring clarity are still wrapped in language of review and consultation. To many Nigerians, it feels as though the country is being asked to wait, not for readiness, but for convenience. As preparations quietly move forward and timelines narrow, the unresolved question of e-transmission continues to cast a long shadow. It influences strategy, shapes public mood, and defines trust long before ballots are cast. And while no final line has been drawn yet, the atmosphere suggests that whatever choice is eventually made will arrive heavy with consequence, because by the time clarity comes, expectations will already be locked in motion. The moment of decision can no longer be postponed. What began as a technical debate has hardened into a national referendum on trust. The longer clarity was delayed, the more meaning Nigerians attached to that delay. In the end, the controversy over e-transmission stopped being about servers, bandwidth, or logistics. It became about whether power was willing to submit itself to the same transparency it demands from citizens. For President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, history narrowed to a single choice. To authorize full, uniform electronic transmission would mean accepting outcomes without buffers, without backstage negotiations, without the comfort of time. To resist it, directly or indirectly, would mean inheriting an election forever shadowed by doubt, no matter who emerged victorious. Either path carried risk, but only one carried the possibility of restoring faith. Inside the independent National Electoral Commission, preparations reached their final stage. Machines were ready, personnel were trained, systems were tested. What remained was not technical readiness, but political permission, clear, unequivocal, and early enough to matter. Without that permission, even the most advanced system would arrive burdened by suspicion. Across Nigeria, citizens had already made up their minds about one thing. Ambiguity was no longer acceptable. The era of benefit of doubt had ended. Voters were prepared to watch, record, verify, and challenge. Not because they wanted conflict, but because uncertainty had taught them vigilance. Democracy, in their eyes, could no longer rely on promises. It required proof. In the final analysis, the fear surrounding e-transmission was never truly about losing elections. It was about losing control over interpretation. Control over when truth emerges, how it is framed, and who has time to respond. E-transmission collapses that control into a single instant where numbers speak louder than power. Nigeria stood, and still stands, at that crossroads. One road leads to an election decided quickly, clearly, and accepted, win or lose, because the process itself is visible. The other leads to an election survived, not celebrated, governed, but questioned, concluded, but contested. By the time the last preparations were locked in, one lesson had become unavoidable. Democracy delayed becomes democracy doubted. And in a nation as young, vibrant, and politically awake as Nigeria, doubt is a force no government can permanently manage. How this choice ultimately reshapes the 2027 election, and the country beyond it, will echo for years. Because once a nation learns to see its votes clearly, it never forgets what that clarity feels like. And that, perhaps more than anything else, is what made e-transmission so powerful and so feared. Thank you for watching.
If Nigeria election is truly fair and fair, like it's truly free and fair, as we always say, if INEC say Nigeria's election is or has always been free and fair, then why fear of transparency? Why are you fearing of being transparent? This is the question I'm asking to the electoral body of Nigeria, like Nigerian electoral body, INEC, the Independent National Electoral Commission. I'm asking, if you say that the election you have been conducting all this while or all these years has been free and it will remain free and fair, then why panicking over the electronic transmission of live results? I mean, won't it be simple? Won't it be easier when you, after the election, after voting, after the masses has come out to vote across several polling units, won't it be simple as a body to count the result, to count the voters, and use the beavers to send the results to the coalition center? Won't it be simple? I'm just thinking, what's hard in transmitting live results? You can use Google, you can use any means. So what's hard there? And the argument has always been there won't be. I mean, the argument has always been there won't be maximum network. Now I'm asking, why won't there be network on the election day? Why won't there be network? What happened to network? Why is there always a network glitch on every election day, especially the one that has to do with presidential election? Why is there always a network glitch? There can be network throughout the election, from the senatorial election, gubernatorial election, chairmanship election. There's always network, but once we get to presidential election, there's always a seizure of network, a downside of network, a failure of network. Election is being transmitted electronically across all election, but once it has to do with presidential election, there's always a network failure. There's always a beavers malfunctioning, and that's the country we are into. We say we are serious. We say we are the um we say we are the what do we call ourselves? The giant of Africa. Yeah, the most populated black nation in the world. Yeah, Nigeria. I think Nigeria is the most populated. If it's not the most, I think it's one of the most populated black nation in the world. Probably the most populated poor black nation in the world, because we are, majority of Nigerians are poor, and yet we have resources giving us millions. We have oils, and yet the top priority of everyone is what will happen in 2027. Nobody is talking about food prices. Everything is high. Rent. Living on your own is not expensive, like affording houses, affording feeding, clothing, water. And it's quite unfortunate that most of these things seen as basic basic amenities for human being is what an average Nigeria cannot afford. And yet we are calling ourselves the pride of Africa, or we are calling ourselves the giant of Africa, and we think we are being valued globally. Anyway, we are just playing. Anyway, what do you guys think about it, about the whole thing going? What do you guys think about next year's election? Who do you guys think is capable to face Nigeria, to face this nation? Because come on, I think Nigeria need a very sincere leader, a very truthful leader, and a very energetic person. You know, it's one thing to know the principles of leadership. It's also another thing to be energetic, physically fit in your head. So, guys, what do you guys think about the whole thing? And if you watch to this point, thank you. I must appreciate you for being part of this channel and being part of this community. Please do me a favor by liking this video and subscribing. Thank you, and God bless you.